The Heir Who Chose Love, a short tale produced by Blessed Amara. In a city that glittered like a jewel under the sun, where skyscrapers pierced the sky and streets sparkled with reflected light, lived a young man named Michael Lawrence. Michael was no ordinary man, for he carried the weight and expectation of generations upon his shoulders. He was the sole heir to the vast Lawrence fortune, a legacy that spanned wealth, power, and influence so profound that their mansion was often mistaken for a palace. Every morning, Michael awoke to luxury most could only dream of: velvet drapes, silk sheets, the soft hum of servants ready to anticipate his every need. His cars roared like untamed beasts, his closets overflowed with garments woven by the finest designers, and jewels glimmered on every surface in his life. People called him the heir, a title he had never asked for, but one that defined him in the eyes of society. And as expected, the world had already mapped out a future for him, a life of opulence paired with a bride of equal wealth and pedigree. Yet, despite all the riches that surrounded him, Michael's heart felt a persistent emptiness. The glitter of gold and silver could not fill the hollowness he carried. He attended parties where champagne flowed endlessly, music soared high, and laughter echoed through gilded halls. Yet every smile around him seemed rehearsed, hollow, a mere reflection of obligation rather than warmth. The women presented to him polished and poised, dazzled with elegance, but left him untouched at the core. His world was one of rules, expectations, and obligations, a gilded cage where the soul yearned for something real. The arrival of Ada, one morning as a crisp breeze swept through the city streets and sunlight glinted off the glass towers, a young girl named Ada arrived at the Lawrence mansion. Ada had come from a small, faraway village, summoned to the city to assist with the household chores. Unlike the women Michael had encountered in his world of privilege, Ada was simple, unassuming, and radiated a quiet dignity. Her feet were bare against the cold marble floors, her hair braided neatly, and her modest attire appeared hand-stitched, carrying with it the texture and essence of her humble origins. She bore a woven basket filled with fresh vegetables and bread, treasures gathered with care from her village garden. When Michael first saw her, he had no expectation, no anticipation, yet something about Ada caught him off guard. He was leaning lazily against the grand doorway of the mansion, his eyes half closed in boredom, when her presence drew him into a sharp awareness he hadn't felt in years. It was the way she moved, deliberate, careful, yet carrying a quiet confidence that made him pause. And then there were her eyes, bright with curiosity and untouched by pretense, which seemed to mirror something Michael had long forgotten: the possibility of feeling. Ada's voice was barely above a whisper when she spoke. "So, this is where I will be working?" Mrs. Lawrence, Michael's mother, observed the scene from the veranda. Her pearls caught the sunlight, shimmering like tiny stars, yet her brow was furrowed in concern. "She looks so ordinary," she murmured to her husband. "Yes," Mr. Lawrence replied, his voice calm but measured. "But humble." That was precisely what we requested. Michael, however, remained silent for a moment, a small, knowing smirk curling on his lips. "She's different," he said quietly, the word almost sacred, as if it were a secret only he could perceive. The first meeting. Ada's first day in the mansion was marked by diligence and an understated grace. She scrubbed the floors until they gleamed, polished the silverware until it shone like mirrors, and dusted the crystal chandeliers that adorned the halls. Each movement was purposeful, precise, yet infused with a softness that transformed the grandeur of the mansion into a space that felt less imposing. She approached her tasks with humility, and yet there was an undeniable aura about her, a quiet strength that spoke volumes. Michael, drawn by curiosity, found himself lingering at the edges of her world. He leaned against the kitchen doorway, his presence a shadow she barely noticed. "No need to call me sir," he said one day, stepping forward with a teasing grin. "Call me Michael." Ada startled, her cheeks flushing crimson. She lowered her gaze, murmuring hesitantly, "Yes, Michael." From afar, his parents exchanged uneasy glances. They could not fathom why their son, raised in a world of privilege, seemed captivated by a girl of such humble origins. Yet, something in Michael's eyes suggested a stir of emotion that neither wealth nor etiquette could dictate. A friendship blossoms weeks passed, and Michael discovered that he looked forward to Ada's presence more than he anticipated. He began showing her the mansion's sprawling gardens, pointing out exotic flowers and towering trees she had never encountered. They walked together along marble fountains, sunlight dancing off the water and sparkling in Ada's wide, curious eyes. "You ever dream of a life beyond this?" Michael asked one afternoon, his voice soft, hesitant, as though speaking his thoughts aloud made them vulnerable. Ada smiled, a gentle curve of her lips. "I only dream of living honestly," she replied, her eyes steady and unflinching. "I want more than honesty," he whispered, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "I want you." Ada's heart raced. She lowered her gaze, trembling. "But your family, they'll never agree." "Then let them never know," Michael said, his fingers lacing with hers in a touch that carried both warmth and promise. "You're all I want." The challenge of wealth. The Lawrences, despite their opulence, were not blind to the developing bond. Mrs. Lawrence orchestrated meetings with daughters of wealthy businessmen, daughters whose education, manners, and lineage were meant to captivate her son. Each time, Michael declined, his refusal firm and unwavering. "I will not marry her," he insisted, his voice steady despite the fatigue shadowing his face. "I want Ada." Frustration simmered through the mansion's corridors. Michael's health began to wane under the weight of expectation and resistance. He refused meals, isolated himself in his room, and ignored the urgent pleas of his physicians. "Sir, you must eat," one doctor urged. "Your body cannot sustain itself in this condition." Michael's eyes, hollow from sleepless nights and hunger, met the doctor's. "Nothing will heal me," he whispered, his voice breaking, "unless I am allowed to marry Ada." The confession. One stormy evening, the rain fell in sheets, cascading over the city and drumming rhythmically on the mansion's roof. Michael, unable to contain the torrent of his own emotions, ran through the halls, dripping wet, and found Ada in the garden, kneeling by the fountain, her hands submerged in the cool water as she tended it. "Ada," he said, voice trembling, "I cannot imagine a life without you. Each moment apart is a torment. Will you be mine, despite everything?" Ada's hands stilled, the water rippling around them. Tears welled in her eyes as she looked at him. "Michael, I never imagined that someone like you could care for someone like me." "I do," he said, dropping to one knee in the mud and rain. "I love you, Ada. Wealth, titles, expectations, they mean nothing. Only you matter." Ada's tears fell freely. Her lips quivered. "I love you too, Michael, but your family? I will face them," he said with unwavering determination. "If they cannot see the heart, they will have to learn." The parent's dilemma. In the quiet of the drawing room, Mrs. Lawrence sat with her hands clenched, wrestling with conflicting emotions. "He's so stubborn," she whispered. "So young. Does he truly understand what he's giving up?" Mr. Lawrence, weary and pensive, considered his wife's words. "Perhaps he understands more than we think." Love cannot always be dictated by wealth. They observed their son, pale yet resolute, pacing the hallway. For 3 days, he refused nourishment, ignoring the most skilled doctors in the city. Nothing seemed to sway him. His heart was set, his mind unwavering, a journey to Ada's village. Finally, the Lawrences acknowledged the depth of Michael's devotion. "If he is this serious," Mrs. Lawrence sighed, tears tracing lines down her cheeks, "we must let him be happy." Preparations were made, and Michael insisted on traveling to Ada's village himself, accompanied by his parents. Upon arrival, the village held its collective breath. Villagers, wary yet curious, watched as the young heir stepped into their world. Ada ran to Michael, throwing herself into his arms. "I've waited for this day," he whispered. "Ada, will you marry me?" he asked, hope and love mingling in his voice. Tears streamed freely down her face. "Yes, Michael, yes!" The village erupted in celebration. Ada's family, once struggling, felt a pride and happiness previously unknown. The Lawrence family contributed gifts, rebuilt homes, and provided new clothes, transforming the village into a place of vibrant life and hope. Transformation through love. Ada's family now lived in a bright, welcoming home. Gardens bloomed, furniture gleamed, and the air was filled with laughter and joy. Villagers watched in awe as the power of love reshaped their world. Michael and Ada strolled hand in hand, their joy infectious. "True love knows no bounds," Michael whispered, resting his head against hers. "It can change everything, status, wealth, even life itself." Ada smiled. "Because of love, we make each other better. Together, we create happiness." Michael's parents observed silently, slowly comprehending the power and truth of their son's choice. Love, they realized, surpassed wealth, status, and expectation. The wedding was simple, yet radiant. Ada wore a dress of her choosing, elegant in its modesty, while Michael's suit complemented her style perfectly. Flowers, ribbons, and lanterns adorned the village square. Music floated through the air, and laughter echoed off the hills. During the ceremony, Mrs. Lawrence placed a gentle hand on Ada's shoulder. "I understand now," she whispered. "You've brought happiness to my son and to all of us." Michael and Ada exchanged vows beneath an open sky, promising to face the future together, hearts entwined. Their love was unwavering, resilient, and pure. In the months and years that followed, Michael and Ada built a life that bridged both worlds. The city mansion became a home filled with laughter and warmth. Ada taught Michael the joys of village life, cultivating gardens, sharing meals with neighbors, embracing humility. Michael brought stability, opportunity, and resources, uplifting not only Ada's family but the broader village community. Their story became legend, a testament to love that transcends wealth, status, and societal expectation. Epilogue. Years later, Michael and Ada watched their children play in the garden, their lives rich not only in wealth but in humility and joy. Michael held Ada close, remembering her first day at the mansion, barefoot and shy, carrying a simple basket. "True love," he whispered, "can overcome everything." Ada smiled, resting her head against his shoulder. And it did. Truly, it did. The heir who chose love lived not merely with fortune, but with a heart richer than any treasure could provide. Together, they proved that love conquers all, and that the heart perceives truths that wealth and titles cannot.